What's going on there, my fellow recappers? Today we're going to look at Beastly, an American romantic fantasy drama film, loosely based on a novel by the same title and is yet another remake that nobody asked for. Spoilers ahead. So the story starts with our main character, Kyle Kinston, doing push-ups, exercising, showing a lot of skin. And if you didn't know already, well, you certainly know now that this movie is aimed at hormonal teenage girls. Kyle finishes his morning routine and goes to his school. Buxton Academy High School, where our main character, the Beast, Kyle Kinston, talks at a podium in front of an audience about vanity and wealth.
Beautiful people get it better.
He starts talking about embracing the suck, whatever that means. I'm sure it'll make more sense later. Meanwhile, within the crowd, some people cheer him on, while others silently judge him, looking uncomfortable and shaking their heads. We then learn that he's running for Green Comet's president, and he begins to spout some nonsense about being rich and beautiful, and the crowd just eats this up and continues to cheer, while Lindy Taylor, quietly judges him from the sidelines.
And the answer is, hell yeah!
Mary-Kate Olsen, who plays the witch that cursed the Beast, is within the crowd listening to the speech, but quickly leaves, likely due to disgust. Honestly, I can relate. And when he's finished his speech, we see Kyle, aka the Beast, walking through the halls with a fake friend, really sucking up hard to him. Kyle believes this is genuine, and even speaks to the teacher in a totally gross and obnoxious fake way, immediately talking smack about him the moment he's out of earshot. Kyle then briefly mentions the witch, whom he saw in the crowd earlier, calling her names. When he rounds the corner, he sees posters of them on the wall, being all disfigured and graffitied over.
Steer clear of the witch.
Now the witch makes it clear that it was her who did this. She and Kyle talk briefly before Mary-Kate walks away. Then Kyle confronts Lindy Taylor, whom he believes was in on the smear campaign. But Lindy interrupts him, telling Kyle that she doesn't know the witch, Mary-Kate, and has nothing to do with what just happened. Really doesn't let others speak for her and doesn't want to run for president. I guess it's a good spot to say something about strong female characters, but nah, you can fill the rest in for yourself. They awkwardly shake hands and part ways.
Best of luck tomorrow.
Now later that day when Kyle's home, we see his dad walking down the steps. Damn, this apartment's a health hazard. No railings. And look at how uncomfortable those chairs look. You know, it's not the kind of apartment I would buy if I had that kind of money. We get some generic talk between father and son, and we learn they don't have much of a relationship, and that dad's a hands-off kind of parent. You know, the busy type. We get more talk about being handsome and all that, and Kyle resorts to texting his father, who's still in the same room, to tell him about election day. But still his dad's too busy with work to pay attention, so he leaves. Kinda can't help but feel a little bad for Kyle. Now we know where he gets it from. This kid reeks of insecurity. So Kyle's left alone only briefly before a woman who we come to learn is the maid comes and speaks with him. He says some disrespectful things to her before walking away, but the maid takes this all in her stride and only smiles at his words before leaving to go home.
Do me a favor.
Well, Kyle becomes president, somehow, and everyone claps for him. The witch is mad, and Kyle tries to make it up to her by offering her tickets to the VIP dance. Also, why does witch Mary-Kate look like that? What's with the wig? Is she undercover or what's going on? Anyways, Kyle revealed that his girlfriend dumped him last night, probably for the same reason most sensible girls wouldn't go out with him in the first place. Oh, and he called her a deep-fried Barbie doll, which is kinda hilarious. Now Mary-Kate over here agrees to go with him, despite suspecting this to be some kind of trick. Later that day, Kyle goes home to prepare for the dance, checks himself out in the mirror, then complains to his maid that she's got the wrong kind of flower. She tells him she didn't have time to get the right flower, and tells Kyle the meaning of a white rose.
You told me yesterday.
Well, Kyle relents and takes it with him. Now at the dance party, the girl he gives the flower to is annoyed that it's the wrong kind. Who is this person? Ex-girlfriend? Did they even really split up? I don't know. I know we saw his girlfriend briefly before, but, she has a forgettable face. Is this a new girl? Whatever. I'm sure it doesn't matter. I doubt we'll see her again anyways. Listen, girls, if a guy gets you any kind of flower, just be grateful. No one likes a spoiled princess. So the girl storms off and Kyle sees Lindy working as a waitress. They make some small talk and she's working to save money for the Machu Picchu trip. She tells Kyle her shift will be over soon and she's leaving to go home without staying for the actual event. Because, she doesn't want to. They talk some more, take a picture together for the school newspaper, have a talk about the flower he still has and its meaning, in a moment that just screams foreshadowing, and then part ways. Now the witch Mary Kate shows up to meet Kyle, and he admits in front of everyone that it was all just a joke, and that he never wanted to hook up with her. He calls her a bunch of names and walks away.
I only came to give you a second chance.
This is when she places that curse on him. Kyle feels uneasy and walks away from her. And while he's dancing with a girl, it doesn't matter who she is, he begins to feel delirious, and so leaves the dance early, presumably to head home. Now on the balcony, he sees the witch Mary Kate, who explains the details of this curse, whispering dramatics to him, and then she leaves. But not before giving him a cool ink job. Seriously, she did that pretty fast. She should open up her own business. Kyle's sitting back looking at his reflection as the witch stands beside him, and he's horrified to learn he's bald now and has a disfigured face. He takes his shirt off to see the markings extend to all over his body. And later, when his father comes home, he dramatically tells him, "Don't turn on the light."
Don't turn on the light.
Which his father does anyway. And his dad immediately takes him to go see a doctor for some help, where he continually emphasizes how ugly his son's looking now. Pretty much speaking for his son and basically saying his son would rather die than look like that. Now Kyle's less than impressed and storms off. They argue, and at some unknown period of time later, his father tells him he's dumping him in a new location to live alone in a house away from prying eyes. And then his father leaves to go live back in the city. We all knew him saying his room was across the hall was a lie. Even his son wasn't buying it. So the dad gives him an awkward hug, which Kyle does not reciprocate, and then runs away.
So I can crash their late nights if need be.
Kyle's spending his first few days wandering aimlessly through the empty house, bored out of his mind, and obsessively checking social media, being repeatedly let down by his dad through text, and exercising. Soon he gets a visitor at the door, a private tutor hired by his rich father, who says he's supposed to move in on that day. Well, Kyle responds saying something negative about his dad, basically rejecting the tutor's services, but unfazed, the tutor replies only with sass.
That's a little gift I have.
Kyle learns the tutor's blind, lets him in, complains some more about his father, and then runs away. So later that night, when Kyle's sulking, the maid enters the room to clean up, and for the first time, Kyle shows a genuine human interest in her and asks her about her family. Well, the maid reassures Kyle, telling him that she knows his father will come to visit. Kyle, however, is not as optimistic about this. So he unsuccessfully tries to contact his father and instead leaves a voice message, basically telling his father not to visit him. He goes out for the first time since being cursed and rides through the city on his new motorbike. He ends up going to a party, presumably one of his friends or the school's holding this, and walks in with his black hood raised, totally not looking shifty in any way. And honestly, he stands out more like this. I think most people would assume he's wearing prosthetics or something, seeing as how everyone's wearing some heavy makeup and costumes at the party anyway. He does eventually take the hood off, blending in, and finds the witch Mary Kate, begging her to end the curse, but to no avail. He sees his girlfriend with another guy, overhearing him talk smack about him.
Sound like Kyle, didn't it?
And briefly meets Lindy, who talks about romance briefly before leaving, in a moment that again screams foreshadowing. So Kyle goes home and the next morning wakes on the floor, for some reason, deciding this would be the best place to rest. He finds that no one has texted him, and when he gets up, he sees that his blind tutor is playing darts somehow. So they get to talking, and Kyle mentions his dad briefly, before admitting to his tutor that all his fake friends are fake.
Living hell has its upside.
And actually secretly hated him. Shocker. They talk about school and how much it sucks. Later, Kyle's sulking a little more, reminiscing of the good old days when life was normal. And he begins to obsess over the picture taken of him and Lindy before this all went down, and zooms in on her face. Doesn't she have the cutest smile? And Kyle goes out again with his hood up, avoiding all eye contact with people around him. And he begins to see the world in a different way. So he goes to Lindy's home and begins to stalk her, creepily standing outside, looking in through her window, in a way that's totally not like Twilight, where Edward's stalking Bella. Damn, even the names are similar. Anyways, the next day, Kyle and his tutor talk about mental Rubik's Cube stuff, and how he, the tutor, still dresses smartly, not for others, but for himself. Kyle's sulking more over some old pictures of himself and deactivates his social media account, giving the reason as to being, I am no more. So dramatic. Yeah, we're disgusted by your bio too.
It's not about how others look at me.
Before we go on, like the video, smash the subscribe button and turn on that notification bell to get that full day of good luck. He then goes back to stalking Lindy. Yeah, this is definitely starting to look like Twilight. Now Lindy goes out and Kyle follows her into the street. Totally not creepy. She ends up getting some snacks before going home. And Kyle then goes to his own home and has an awkward meal with his new family, the blind tutor and the maid. Now Kyle's talking about trying to help the tutor with his sight, but the tutor tells him that only a miracle can make him see again. Foreshadowing! The maid and the tutor begin to interrogate him, and Kyle admits he got back late last night because of a girl. And the maid immediately assumes they're getting married or something. Kyle and the tutor go to the roof to play golf to celebrate before Kyle goes back to stalking Lindy. So Kyle turns into Batman and rescues Lindy's father from a loan shark or something and carries her to safety. Why is she even unconscious? She hit her head or… Anyways, Kyle goes back to the dark alley after hearing gunshots and finds that Lindy's father has killed the guy who originally had the gun. The dead guy's brother swears revenge and says he'll kill Lindy as payback.
What do you need?
Well, Kyle then blackmails Lindy's father into getting Lindy to stay with him to protect her in a way that definitely reminded me of the Beast in that Disney movie. You know, how he imprisoned Belle with the whole Stockholm Syndrome thing taking over? Yeah, so Lindy arrives at the Beast's house and is understandably mad at her father for dumping her in a stranger's place. Now she talks to her father briefly, revealing she has a messed up relationship with him, like Kyle does with his own father. Now Lindy's threatening Kyle, who's going by the name of Hunter, to hide his identity by shouting through the house that she'll tase him if he gets close to her. Damn, girl, at the very least you could have said it to his face. As far as we know, you don't know anything about blackmail, and this person is offering you protection. The least you could do is be a little grateful. So now Lindy's living with the Beast. Hunter. God. He begins to stalk her online too, seeing she's very unhappy in a strange new situation. So he's trying to feed her by offering her food through the door, but she's not leaving her room.
I got you food.
He then tries to bribe her affection by buying her expensive gifts, which doesn't work. So he tries again with a different gift instead. Damn, Hunter, I thought you were smarter than this. Immediately after this fails, Hunter begs his maid to buy any expensive thing for her, and the maid tells him that, from what she's seen, Lindy's not the kind of girl to be bought. She tells Hunter to get to know Lindy on a personal level and find out more about her. So he visits her door again, wearing a ski mask, totally more creepy than just showing your face, and offers her what we can only presume is the same type of sweet he saw her eating previously. Well, he knows what sweets she likes because he was stalking her. And now he invades her privacy a little more by listening in on her private conversation and watching her. But she hears him and tells him how much the ski mask freaks her out. He offers her the sweets and then backs up into the corner like a frightened animal. And they argue about why she's there and that she needs to be protected. Well, Lindy thanks Hunter for the sweets, and later he thanks his maid for the advice. Who knew? Actually listening to someone and treating them like a human being and not something that can be bought with expensive gifts can lead to something positive. It's weird.
Thanks for the juju fruits.
So now Hunter begins to think about this some more and starts to write her letters, knowing that she likes this, and then decides to build her a greenhouse, knowing she likes roses. Because he's been stalking her like crazy and still stalks her online. And who says romance is dead? Lindy finally emerges from her room and the tutor introduces himself to her. They shake hands, which looks weird by today's standards, and this is the second time we're seeing this. Oh, how times have changed. If you're watching this years later, it's currently 2022 and COVID's still a thing. Yeah, can't believe I'm living through a plague either.
Will, pleasure.
So Hunter's beginning to build a greenhouse, and she begins to stalk him now, curious as to how it's going. Later, Hunter looks at his arm and sees that tattoo is lit up like a Christmas tree, complete with a star on top. Looks like witchy Mary-Kate has a sense of humor.
Very funny.
Now Lindy finally speaks to Hunter and the two begin to bond over translating Korean. Hunter reveals his face and Lindy only replies calmly that she's seen worse. Now we're making progress. Honestly though, I can't be the only one who thinks he actually looks better this way. I'm sure there's tons of girls out there that would find this attractive. So now Hunter invited Lindy to his private tutor classes, which he hasn't been doing until that point, and tries to impress her by cheating. But the tutor refuses to let him cheat, so he asks the maid for more advice. So a little later on, Hunter has finally finished that greenhouse. Looks kinda awesome actually. And they have their first tutor class. But before this starts, he gives her exactly the kind of coffee she likes. And why is that, kids? Because he stalks her like crazy. And now he begins to open up to her, while the tutor pretends to vomit in the background. However, the lesson never actually happens as the tutor and the maid very obviously leave. And now the two are alone together, reading poems together as the seasons change outside and the roses in the background bloom. But time for the beast is running out, and he runs to the witch Mary Kate to beg for more time to break that spell. Well, she refuses, but says she'll help his tutor restore his eyesight and his maid see her children again if he succeeds.
If you succeed.
So now Hunter meets Lindy in her room and finds that she has a picture of him together before he was cursed. They talk about it, and Lindy tells him how much of a jerk Kyle was, and that Hunter reminds her a little of him. Not the jerk part though. They both admit they kinda like each other, in a cute and awkward kind of way, not romantically yet though, but don't worry, we're getting there. And now Lindy continues to talk about Kyle, saying she feels there's something beneath his jerk exterior that she liked. They did kinda have a chemistry together. I mean, their conversation flowed smoothly.
Good.
So they go out for a late night walk and visit the zoo after hours. What could possibly go wrong? They bond some more, whisper a little, and run around the zoo. So Hunter, talks about his past and how he visited the zoo a long time ago. His father brought him all the toys he wanted, and then tells him his mother left him without warning, and he hasn't seen her since. So later, Hunter and Lindy go home and sit on the roof outside the greenhouse. She lays down on the bench and rests her head on his lap. He carries her to her bed, somehow not falling down the steep steps, and tucks her in. He sees a notification on her computer and learns that she still wants to run away to Machu Picchu and that she's talking to some other guy. So to try to convince her to stay, Hunter takes her to a private getaway where Lindy gets a text from her father telling her that the dangerous man that was after her has been arrested. She doesn't need to hide anymore and can go home. Well, they visit his dad's massive holiday mansion. Wait a minute, I thought we were staying away from the whole trying to buy her affection. Oh, whatever. They hang out at that holiday mansion, and Lindy talks more about her past. They head off to the lake, sun setting romantically, and he nearly kisses her. But her phone begins to ring at that exact moment. So now Lindy's taken a train to the hospital after learning her father has fallen ill. We experience the most painful moment of the movie as Lindy tells Hunter that he's a good friend. Ouch. Sorry, man. That had to hurt a lot.
You're a good friend.
So Lindy's on the train and begins to read the letters Hunter gave her before they nearly kissed, which is basically a series of letters telling her that he's slowly falling in love with her. Lindy's father turns out to be fine, and she begins to try to call Hunter again, but he's feeling hurt by her words calling him a good friend, so Hunter's ghosting her. Eventually, Hunter snaps out of his pity party being a moody teen and all and meets Lindy at school just before she set off for her trip to Machu Picchu. Everyone stares at him and gasps. Hunter dramatically declares his love to her in front of an audience. She lowers his hood so that everyone can see him. Then, finally, she kisses him, but hasn't yet said the words "I love you." He encourages her to go, so as not to miss the bus, and she turns to walk away. Now Hunter thinks he's run out of time, but just before she's out of sight, she turns back and says the magic words, "I love you." Hunter steps outside and transforms back into his true self, as Kyle. And moments later, Lindy runs back to him, looking for Hunter, having decided not to take the bus to Machu Picchu. Well, she doesn't recognize the now transformed Kyle, and when she tries to ring Hunter, she hears Kyle's phone ring in his pocket. Now Lindy is understandably shocked, and it does take a few minutes to process this, but eventually accepts. And the two kiss again, this time for realsies. Shortly after this, as promised by the witch, we see that the tutor's regaining his eyesight, and the maid, having received the documents at last, can finally visit her children in Jamaica. A happy ending for all. Except for Kyle's dad, who's visited by the witch. Thanks for hanging out till the end. This was our recap of Beastly, released back in 2011, with actors like Alex Pettyfer as the Beast, Vanessa Hudgens as Belle, a distinct lack of talking clocks, candles, and cutlery, also starring Alyssa Gay Hamilton as the Maid, Yep, that's her actual name. Feel free to Google her. I was surprised too. Oh, and that guy from Starship Troopers. I knew he looked familiar. Love that movie. It was distributed by CBS Films, based on the book by the same name and directed by Daniel Barnes. Go ahead and subscribe if you liked the video and bang that bell button to get those notifications. You might want to share it too, or a witch might get you and give you permanent ugliness. Well, never mind. Looks like she already visited you. My bad, don't worry. I'm sure there's someone out there who will love you regardless. But really, if you take anything away from this movie, then remember to always be nice to people. No one likes a jerk. Now, there might not be witches, but people will like you much more if you're nice.